Good afternoon students, I am Chitra Silvania welcoming you to online class today. In previous class, we discussed about reproduction in organisms in which we have completed sexual and asexual reproduction. Today, we start with second chapter, human reproduction. Human reproduction gives you an awareness towards healthy reproductive life in adolescence. The main functions of reproductive system is to produce gametes, transport the gametes, giving food to developing offerings and to produce hormones. There are some major events in reproductive life of human beings which starts from gametogenesis and ends in parturition. First is gametogenesis. Production of gametes is called as gametogenesis. The sperms are transported to female reproductive tract is insemination. The fusion of male and female gamete to produce diploid zygote is fertilization. The zygote divided into multicellular blastocyst is cleavage. Attachment of blastocyst is called implantation. And formation of placenta between the fetus and mother is called as placentation. The blastocyst changed into 3 germ layer gastrula is gastrulation, and formation of organs and organ system is called organogenesis. Finally, expulsion of fetus is called parturition. These functions are carried out by primary and secondary reproductive organs. Next, we move on to the male reproductive system, which comprises of pair of testes, accessory glands, ducts, and external genitalia. Testes are the primary male sex organs. They are paired structures lying in the scrotum. A scrotum is a sac of skin that hangs outside the abdominal cavity. Since viable sperms cannot be produced at normal body temperature, the scrotum is placed outside the abdominal cavity to provide a temperature 2 to 3 degrees lower than the normal internal body temperature. Thus, scrotum acts as thermoregulator. Each testis is covered by tunica albuginea and is divided into many lobules which contains seminiferous tubules. These seminiferous tubules has 2 types of cells. One is serotolith cell, other one is spermatogonic cell. Serotolith cell provide nourishment to the sperms and also secrete a hormone called inhibin. Spermatogonic cells differentiate to produce spermatozoa. Leydig cell secretes an hormone called testosterone which initiates the process of spermatogenesis. The accessory ducts associated with male reproductive system includes retitestis, vas efferentia, epididymis and vas deferens. The sperm leaves the retitestis and enter into the epididymis through vas efferentia. The epididymis is a single coil structure which temporarily stores the spermatozoa. The epididymis leads to vas deferens and it leads to ejaculatory duct and finally it opens into urethra. The accessory glands of reproductive system include paired seminal vesicles and bulbourethral gland, also called as Cowper's gland, and a single prostate gland. The seminal vesicle secretes a fluid called seminal plasma or semen. A semen is a milky white fluid which contains sperms. Next, we look into the female reproductive system, which is far more complex than the male reproductive system. The female reproductive system consists of pair of ovaries along with a pair of oviducts, uterus, cervix, vagina, and the external genitalia. Ovaries. Ovaries are the primary female organ that produce the female gamete ovum. So, the ovaries are located on each side of the lower abdomen. The ovary is elliptical in structure, about 2 to 4 cm long, and is covered by germinal epithelium which encloses the ovarian stroma. The fallopian tube, uterus and the vagina constitute the female accessory organs. The proximal part of the fallopian tube bears a funnel-shaped structure called infundibulum. The edges of the infundibulum have many finger-like projections called fimbriae, which helps in the collection of ovum after ovulation. The last part of the oviduct is the isthmus, which connecting the ampulla and the infundibulum to the uterus. The uterus is a hollow, thick-walled, muscular, highly vascular, and inverted, pear-shaped structure lying in the pelvic cavity between the urinary bladder and the rectum. The uterus opens into vagina through a narrow cervix. The wall of the uterus has three layers of tissues. The outermost layer is the perimetrium, middle muscular layer is called myometrium, and the inner glandular layer is called endometrium. A vagina is a large fibromuscular tube that extends from cervix to the exterior. If you see the external genitalia, it comprises of labia majora, labia minora, hymen, and clitoris. The glands that is seen in the female reproductive system is the Bartholin's gland, which is homologous to the bulbourethral gland of the male, which secretes mucus to lubricate the vagina. And the Skin's gland, they also secrete the lubricating fluid, which are homologous to the prostate gland of male. The main function of female reproductive system is to nurture the developing offerings. Mammary glands play a very important role in female reproductive system. The mammary glands are modified sweat glands present in both sexes. It is rudimentary in the males and functional in the females. Internally, each mammary gland consists of 2 to 25 lobes separated by fat and connective tissues. Each lobe is made up of lobules which contain alveoli. Cells of alveoli secrete milk. The alveoli opens into the mammary tubule. These tubules join to form the mammary duct. Several mammary ducts join to form mammary ampulla, which is connected to the lactiferous duct. Each lactiferous duct expands to form lactiferous sinus, which serve as a reservoir of milk. Next, we move on to the chapter Gametogenesis. Gametogenesis is the process of formation of gametes, that is, sperms and ovary, from the primary sex organs in all sexually reproducing organisms. Meiosis plays a significant role in the process of gametogenesis. Spermatogenesis. What is spermatogenesis? Spermatogenesis is the sequence of events in the seminiferous tubule of the testis that produce the male gametes, that is the sperm. During development, the primordial germ cells migrate into the testis and become immature germ cells called sperm mother cell or spermatogonia in the inner surface of the seminiferous tubule. In the first stage of spermatogenesis, the spermatogonia enlarged to form primary spermatocyte, which are diploid with 23 pairs, that is 46 chromosomes. Some of the primary spermatocyte undergo first meiotic division to form two secondary spermatocyte, which are haploid with 23 chromosomes each. The secondary spermatocyte undergo second meiotic division to produce 4 haploid spermatids. The spermatids are transformed into mature spermatozoa, that is sperms, by the process called spermiogenesis. Sperms are finally released into the cavity of seminiferous tubule by a process called spermiation. This whole process of spermatogenesis takes place about 64 days. The sperm production remains nearly constant at a rate of about 200 million sperms per day. Spermatogenesis starts at the age of puberty. It is due to the release of gonadotropin releasing hormone by the hypothalamus. Especially testosterone, which is released by the Leydig cell, also stimulate the process of spermatogenesis. Next, we move on to the structure of human sperm. Human sperm is a microscopic, flagellated and motile sperm. The whole body of the sperm is developed by a plasma membrane and is composed of 3 parts: head, neck and a tail. The head comprises of 2 parts, namely acrosome and nucleus. Acrosome is a small cap-like pointed structure present at the tip of the nucleus and is formed mainly from the Golgi body of the spermatid. It contains hyaluronidase, that is an enzyme, proteolytic enzyme popularly known as sperm lysine, which helps to penetrate the ovum during fertilization. The neck is very short and is present between the head and the middle piece. The middle piece possesses mitochondria spirally twisted around the axial filament called mitochondrial spiral. It produces energy in the form of ATP molecule for the movement of sperm. The tail is the longest part of the sperm and is slender and tapering, which helps to move the sperm towards the ovum. The human male ejaculates about 200 to 300 million sperm during coitus. Next, we move on to oogenesis. What is oogenesis? Oogenesis is a process of development of female gamete or ovum or egg in the ovaries. During fetal development, certain cells in the germinal epithelium of the fetal ovary divide by mitosis and produce millions of oogonia. The oogonial cell starts dividing and enter into the prophase 1 of meiotic division 1 to form primary oocyte. This primary oocyte then gets surrounded by a single layer of granulosa cells to form primary follicles. The primary follicles get surrounded by many layers of granulosa cells to form secondary follicle. A fluid-filled space, the antrum, develops in the follicle and gets transformed into a tertiary follicle. At this time, the primary oocyte within the tertiary follicle grows in size and completes its first meiotic division and forms secondary oocyte. It is an unequal division, resulting in the formation of large haploid secondary oocyte and a first polar body. The first polar body disintegrates. During fertilization, the secondary oocyte undergo second meiotic division and produces a large cell, the ovum, and a secondary polar body. The second polar body also disintegrates. The tertiary follicle eventually becomes a mature follicle or a graphene follicle. If fertilization does not take place, second meiotic division is never completed and the egg disintegrates. At the end of gametogenesis, in females, each primary oocyte gives rise to only one haploid ovum. If you see the structure of ovum, human ovum is non-cladoic, alecital, that is without yolk, and microscopic in nature. Its cytoplasm is called as ooplasm, which contains a large nucleus called germinal vesicle. The ovum is surrounded by thick coverings, namely an inner thin transparent vitelline membrane, middle thick zona pellucida, and outer thick coat of follicular cells called corona radiata. Between vitelline membrane and zona pellucida is a narrow previtelline space. Hope you have a clear understanding in major events of reproductive system, male reproductive system and female reproductive system. If you have any doubts, feel free to ask me and I send you the assignment. Complete it and submit. Thank you.